And now it's my honor to introduce tonight's candidates, the candidates for Council District 14. As I introduce you, you'll each have 3 minutes for your opening remarks. Raquel Zamora.
Thank you. First and foremost, congratulations, Hermon, on having your own neighborhood council forum. I know that you are the newest neighborhood council, that you became your own neighborhood council in May 2017. So there's definitely people power here. My name is Raquel Zamora. I am your friendly neighbor from Boyle Heights. I have deep roots in the community. My family has a family-owned business. I was born and raised in Boyle Heights. Our family-owned business has been there for 50 years. My grandmother has worked at Olvera Street for 60 years. I'm actually an educator. I'm a mother. I'm raising my daughter in the same neighborhood blocks that raised me. I have been with LAUSD for 14 years, 11 years as a teacher, 3 years as a pupil services and attendance counselor. I currently work at Fremont High School. I work directly with homeless students, referring our students to mental health services. I'm a social worker. I have experience working with victims of crime. So victims of crime being victims of sexual abuse, domestic violence, and murder cases. So I'm very much, my perspective and as a candidate is very much on the ground. Like I mentioned, there's no time, is there a frame time?
Yep.
No. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm okay on time. And I'm running for office to represent the best interests of the people, and I want to be a fighter for you at City Hall. Thank you.
Kevin De Leon.
Thank you so very much. First and foremost, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce myself and for this open forum. Let me say this. I'm the youngest child of a single immigrant mother with a third-grade education. My mother had the courage of her convictions to cross a border and to come to this country. She cleaned homes in a very wealthy enclave in San Diego next to Tijuana. The ocean, panoramic views of the Pacific Ocean, the large mansions, La Jolla, California. And it was there that I learned the value of hard work and our mother's very strong work ethic. I love Los Angeles, and I love CD14. I've had the honor and the distinct privilege to represent all of the communities of CD14 as your assembly member and as your state senator, and just recently as the leader of the California State Senate. I was born in CD14 in downtown Los Angeles, what was then known as California Hospital. And the communities that we have here are absolutely amazing. In fact, CD14 has inspired me to move to the most consequential policies in state history in California. Because of the air quality in Los Angeles, but especially in Northeast, because we have, in CD14 alone, we have the 2 freeway, the 5, the 10, the 60, we have the 101, the 110, with the 134, the 210, and the 710 freeway. We have 9 major freeways with all of that pollution that chokes the air out of young children's lungs. I moved California to 100% renewable clean energy with the largest economy in the country, in the world, to legally dedicate ourselves. So that means LADWP will be 100% clean renewable energy. Because of our amazing diversity, but because of our immigrant community, I made California the first and largest state in the country to be a sanctuary state, because we won't be a cog in the Trump deportation machine. And because we have the largest homeless population, not in the city of LA, not in California, but in the United States of America. In fact, CD14, and Skid Row specifically, is the national epicenter for our homeless crisis. I authored and I wrote the No Place Like Home Act. Those dollars will be coming out this year. It is $2 billion to build permanent housing solutions for our unhoused and homeless community in CD14 and throughout Los Angeles. CD14 has inspired me, has motivated me to do some of my best work. And I would be absolutely honored to continue to fight and defend your rights, because Hermon is an amazingly beautiful community. I play tennis right down the street at Hermon Park. In fact, we need to resurface those tennis courts down there. I can tell you that much right now. And we need to also put some shade, structure for our dog park. But if you give me that opportunity, we can continue to beautify the medium that is Hermon. And I see that my time is up, and I thank you very much for this opportunity you've given me. Thank you very much, everybody.
By the way, does anyone feel like they need a microphone? Were you able to hear the first two speakers?
I would
Okay.
love one.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
great at projecting.
Hello. Okay.
Thank you.
Cyndi Otteson.
Hi. Thank you, Hermon Neighborhood Council, for hosting this forum. Thank you to every single person who came out today. And congrats on being the newest member of the Neighborhood Council family. I myself am a proud graduate of the Neighborhood Council system, having served 3 years as Vice President of the Eagle Rock Neighborhood Council. My name is Cyndi Otteson. I am a neighbor. I own a home just up the street and around the corner. I was born in this district, and I am the daughter of Korean immigrants. I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son who I am lucky enough to walk every day to our local public neighborhood school. And I'm a businesswoman with 20 years of experience managing millions of dollars in advertising budgets. I'm a nonprofit leader who co-founded Miri's List with my best friend Miri. And today, in just 3 short years, we have activated over 75,000 Americans to help welcome our new arrival refugee families. And shout out to the Hermon Neighborhood Council for being part of our Welcome Neighbor program. Thank you so much. That's a little bit about me. Now I want to tell you why I'm running. I couldn't watch this election go by from sitting on the sidelines because I am deeply worried about the city and the future. I cannot reconcile the fact that we are one of the richest cities in the world, and yet we have 36,000 people experiencing homelessness, the worst air quality in the nation, and children who are being struck and killed by cars while walking on their way to school. It happens in Figueroa, it happens in Eagle Rock. Our principal has to stand in the middle of the street to make sure that children aren't being hit and struck by cars. And the frustrating thing is that the city council has the tools to fix these problems, and they're not doing enough. It is time for a new kind of leadership at City Hall, to elect new leaders with new ideas. I am that candidate. I am running a 100% clean money campaign, which means I have rejected developer money, corporate money, charter school money, any special interest money that would cloud the judgment, to make sure that we are doing everything we can for our families and neighborhoods. And that is my commitment to you. I am coming at this from the grassroots up, not the top down. In my experience on the Neighborhood Council, we dealt with every single issue at City Hall. Planning and land use, development, education, homelessness, crime, street safety, beer and liquor license, you name it. We dealt with it, and I got a lot done. And it is time for us to elect officials that actually are going to make things better. And we can do that. And I hope that you will join me in making sure that the next councilwoman has that kind of experience, and that is me. Thank you.
Monica Garcia.
Good evening. Buenas noches. I'm glad to be here at Hermon. It just took me 2 minutes to get here because I live on the other side of Debs Park in El Sereno. And so here is the bottom line for me. I'm 51 years old. I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrants that met in Boyle Heights. I myself was born in unincorporated East LA, but I absolutely characterize myself as a product of the greater East Side. I have benefited from the civil rights movement and the women's movement all of my life. I learned early in life that I needed to challenge the status quo, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. And so when I got to LA Unified, I learned the same thing. We needed to challenge the status quo. In 2001, you would hear 50% dropout. You would hear children can't and don't want to. And you would hear leadership say, if you take away the English learners and the special ed kids, we're doing okay. So I am someone who is comfortable rejecting the status quo and helping its system and people learn and change. Today, LA Unified has 80% graduation, and largely not because we got a huge investment of money, but largely because we eliminated barriers and we helped people closest to schools make decisions about how to help our children. So as a social worker, as a graduate of UC Berkeley and USC, I know the powerful experience of people coming together and deciding what they want their future to be. As I get to the city council, and what I invite you all to join me, again, we're looking at a status quo that says some of us have shelter tonight. Some of us get to be seen and heard. And I think we should change that. I think we should be the Los Angeles that has shelter for everyone. And that would be my priority. I would commit to dealing with the unhoused in my first term. I'm going to tell you that I love people. I love community building. I love solution building. And being the third Latina on the school board in 155 years has been a challenge. We went from, when I was born, we were 5th in the nation in per pupil spending. When I was chair of that board, we got to 49th. And you know LA Unified like I know LA Unified. We're 91% kids of color, 84% kids of free and reduced lunch. Why do I tell you that? Because leadership is rough and tough, but I am inspired by people who say our community has solutions. We can lead CD14. We can lead LA City. And I invite you to come close, join us. Gracias.
John Jimenez.
Well, there's not much to brag about because I'm not a politician. I was born and raised in Boyle Heights. And not only being raised in Boyle Heights, I raised my son in Boyle Heights. I had strict rules and regulations for my kids. I thank God that my son Robert Jimenez is second in command in the federal government for the railroad retirement. He is a long-term federal careerist now. And his children are also going into college and teaching them only because what I taught them of moral values. I'm an old school. I'm not in the modern world of it. I love the community of 14th District since I was born. I was born among Jewish people. We were actually the 7th Hispanic family in the area. I learned how to speak a little bit of Jewish, the bad words. And my parents were also from Mexico. My father actually served in the armed forces. That's how he got his green card. And then from there, he got my mom's green card. And my father was a business person. I was only, 7 years old, getting a $100 allowance a week. And I didn't know what to do with it, so I bought toys for my nephews. And I bought toys for my neighbors. So I didn't know. What I valued more was change, 10 cents, dime, go shoe shining the shoes down at the market on Central Market on Broadway, things like that. But goes further than that. I was in the Chicano movement known as the Brown Berets. From the Brown Berets, we learned a lot, what was needed, how the system was corrupted. However, there's some people that actually flew with us, but only used us to get into position, to become bureaucrats, to become self-serving. I have learned so much. I have 45 years of experience working with the community. Today, I sat down with Officer Dion at Skid Row, and he says, Jimenez, where were you 11 years ago? 11 years ago, I ran. Where? 14th District. But nobody paid attention. But the thing is this, I know what it is to administrate. I know what it is to roll up your sleeves and do things. I'm the founder, one of the founders of the Neighborhood Council of Boyle Heights. My son was the first president of the Boyle Heights. Not only that, I'm also the founder of Operation Youth Educational Services. Why did I end up with that? It was all because of Lyndon B. Johnson. He took me out of the ruts that I was in, negative, and put me into a positive role. I went to East LA College and other things. But if you want to know more about me, because my time's up, get one of my bios. And don't lose that phone number, because I'm gonna keep that number to answer your questions when I'm the councilman.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll go back to the, okay.
To the first person.
Yep, thank you. Okay, this evening is something like a job interview for every job at City Hall, and for every job at City Hall, there's a job description. What would your responsibilities and powers be while representing Hermon? Furthermore, what is your leadership style, and what will you tell your staff is their priority when it comes to Hermon?
Okay, well, first and foremost, people first, families first. I would definitely tell my staff that we need to be on the ground. As my job as a councilwoman, it is 24 hours, not only office hours. I need to have office hours with our constituents. I want to be able to ride with our police officers at night to know what the issues are and help address the needs that each one of our communities has. Because in CD14, every one of our communities has different needs and they have different interests, and we need to listen to people, and we need to do what people tell us and what they want. So whatever the largest consensus is of the people, then council members need to follow through, because as council members work for the people don't work for a council member and their staff. So I would definitely hold my staff accountable and myself accountable to be able to do the job at hand. And definitely be able to look at the budgets and see and have transparency for our constituents to know where their dollars are going to. And that's actually very, very important.
As a council member, your council member is your elected official. It is your voice in City Hall to fight through all the bureaucracy, to fight through all the agencies, to do everything within his or her power to improve the human condition for all individuals, regardless of who you are, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your legal status. Now, Hermon is an amazing community, and staff is so important. I can't stress enough to you, whoever is your elected official, they must have excellent staff, who's an extension of the council member. I've had the privilege to, for 12 years straight, to have excellent staff who've been with me since day one. In fact, I've never fired one staff member. I've never had one staff member quit on me. I had a few staff members who went out to law school or postgraduate degree, but I never had anyone who quit on me. Having excellent staff is so critical, how you treat them. The Hermon community is an amazingly beautiful community. The medium right here, I can think of how we can beautify the medium with more trees. We can also have a gateway marquee sign, if the community would like one, that's lighted, that welcomes folks to the Hermon community. Like I said, I play tennis down the street at Hermon Park, and we need to resurface that park. But we must follow through all the projects that are currently in the queue right now, for example, on Marisol Street, and how we have the sediment that's not being compacted, and how you have literally a street that's actually falling apart right now. That project has to finish up because that's worth about $3.1 million. We have Bushnell Way School, a beautiful elementary school here with wheeling as well too. And we have to improve our sidewalks in this area. Just on Monterey Road, we have folks, unfortunately, trying to go as fast as they can, and we've had a pedestrian fatality, a young boy. We need to pacify that street, Monterey Street, so we can make sure that our community is safe every single day when they cross either Monterey Road or Marisol. My time is up. I said thank you very much.
So the job of a councilwoman is to be a leader. And in order to be a leader, you have to effectively be able to listen and engage your community. And the first thing that you have to do is be able to establish trust. And you build that trust by showing up, by being honest, and even if you disagree, by being respectful in that disagreement. Hermonites passionately disagree, and that is the job of a council member, to tell you the hard truths and to also show up even when you know people are upset. That is the job. And it is also the job to make sure that when you're hiring staff, and this is what I've been asking is, do you feel like your current field deputies are doing a good job in your neighborhood? And if not, why? What are the things? And a lot of times I hear, well, I keep calling and then after a while I don't hear anything anymore. And there's no follow-up. Or we don't know what happened. We stopped getting answers. And your job is to never shy away from having that conversation, to always be accountable and responsive. So the first thing I would do in terms of leadership and hiring is make sure that every single staff member knows and keeps a track of every single inquiry that comes in. And when you do, you respond in 24 hours, in 48 hours, and at the maximum a week. And if you can't respond in that week, you give them a call and you let them know that you are still working on it. That is what you do. My leadership style is dynamic. It's ever evolving, and it depends on what the situation is that I will evolve to what needs to take place. And I'm not above getting my hands dirty. I love doing hard work. Every single time in my career that I've come and brought my skill set and my talent to something, I've made something better. And that is the job of your council member. It is also the job to educate residents, to empower them and let them know what they can do to make sure to do the work and work to partner and make sure to get things that they want done at City Hall. But it is also to lift up the quiet voices, not just the loudest, to address equity in this district and make sure that you are there fighting for every single resident, voting or not, loud or quiet. That is what we need.
Thank you. So my brand is bold leadership, raising expectations, and not just of the system, but of ourselves. I absolutely come to the work with personal, professional, and political experience that inform what I know. And before, or as we started this campaign, we have a community survey, and I began walking Eagle Rock, Highland Park, Hermon, El Sereno, Boyle Heights, and downtown. The principal piece of my work is listening, because I can deliver, my team can deliver, we can work inside and outside the system, but it is about supporting local control. It is about having high expectations, knowing that solutions in Hermon might look differently than in El Sereno or downtown. So I believe all people matter. I believe, as your council person, I work for everyone, and I am a worker, a fighter, and a leader. I am a leader among leaders. You know, the folks leading families and neighborhoods have a super hard job. I've always known that the parent's job is harder than any other job. And so, as your council person responsible for making sure we get our fair share, making sure that folks who want to work in the 14th are absolutely committed to the 14th. And that goes for my staff and city staff. I think one of the most important pieces for any elected officer is who represents them and who works with their authority. My staff would absolutely know that they are responsible, accountable, and representative of our community. And friends, none of this is easy, but I would invite all of you to join my team and let's work together. Gracias.
Well, I have a little different story. A lot of promises have been made. I was born and raised in the 14th district. A lot of politicians promised everything. They never fulfilled it. That's why I'm running. 11 years ago, I ran. And Weezer took notes of everything I said. And guess what? He implemented them. But the people didn't vote for me. But it's okay, because my job is to continue helping people. I'm an administrator. I have 45 years of experience. I'm not a child. I'm not a youngster. I'm a senior citizen. And I'm 78 years old. And I love helping people. If I wasn't doing the right thing, my son would be in jail. because we live in a tough area in Boyle Heights. Gangs in every other block. It's tough. But I was born and raised here. I don't have to move in here to be a candidate. This is my 14th district. And I walked the precincts to collect my signatures. I didn't pay for it. I had volunteers. They didn't pay for them. They didn't get paid, you know, they volunteered. I bumped into a lot of people in Eagle Rock. And also here, everywhere. I stand in the markets collecting signatures. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ruffle feathers in City Hall. What happened to all that money from Tom Bradley for the homeless? What happened for the affordable housing from Tom Bradley? To present all this money filtering in here and it hasn't hit our doors. It hasn't. Our streets are still the same. I'm not gonna give you lip service, I'm gonna give you action. So I'm the guy, 45 years of experience. Thank you. And I'll be a good steward.
We're rotating who starts with the answering the questions. Okay, here's a question near and dear to my heart, which is why I got involved with the neighborhood council to begin with. Our infrastructure in Hermon continues to crumble. We still have very bad sidewalks to repair, and one of our main arteries, Via Marisol, has been awaiting repair for years. It has now become its own safety issue, and we need that finished. What will you do to assure that these projects are completed at the beginning of your term?
Very good question, Nicole. And I think I mentioned a few moments ago that the sediment is not compacted correctly, and you have a sidewalk that's falling apart. It's actually sliding down right now on Marisol Street. Let me be very clear. There is resources in the queue right now for that project. And if given an opportunity to be your voice in Hermon, that project will be completed. There will be, there's no room for misinterpretation. There's no vagueness, ambiguity. That project will be completed. There's some infrastructure needs in Hermon that are needed. I want to go back to what I said a few moments ago. We do need to pacify Monterey because we have a lot of folks who speed down Monterey to get to the freeway, 110 freeway, or to get to Pasadena. That puts a lot of our senior citizens, that puts a lot of our families in harm's way. We need to pacify this. I need to engage with the community if we need a light, more lights, or if we need more crosswalks, if we need more safety with the Department of Transportation. But I travel this to go to El Sereno on the other side. I travel it to get to the 110 and obviously over to Hermon Park 2. So I know what is happening here. We need to also pacify by dealing with all of our sidewalks here. We need to beautify our community. And I think on the medium here, we can plant more trees if the community would like more trees. But also too would like to put a gateway marquee that's lighted that beautifies this community if in fact our community here in Hermon, our Hermonites here would like to have that. Let me just emphasize once again, this is an amazing jewel. It's hidden. So many folks don't know that Hermon even exists. And it's part of CD14. It's a lovely part of this community. But the infrastructure needs are critical, without a doubt. You will have my vote, you have my word, that we will get this done, and we'll get it done on Marisol in the first year in my office.
Pass it to Cyndi.
So the first thing that I would do is make sure that what are the list of all of the uncompleted projects from the transfer of Weezar's administration and my office, and make sure that there is still a pathway to make sure that all of those projects are completed. The second thing I would do is, which I've already done, is to look at the entire district by every single neighborhood and identify with every single field representative and field deputy to make a map of every single street, every single sidewalk that needs repairs. And that is across the entire district, because we see it all. And we need to make sure that we are prioritizing walkers and pedestrians, and that if we can design a city that is safe for our most vulnerable, our children, our elderly, then we can make sure that it is a city that is safe for all. So that is what I would do, make a complete list, a comprehensive list, and make sure that every single field deputy, every single field office is accountable to that, and to have a call in to say, give me the list of the sidewalk that is broken in front of your house, in front of your street, and make sure that we are ticking away at that list every single time.
Thank you. So absolutely, what my approach would be, it's funded. Let's make sure we design with the neighborhood council, with whoever, whatever residents want to participate. Let's create an inside-outside strategy to monitor that project. We've built 131 new schools. I'm a social worker, I said that, but I learned how to say, is it on time? Is it on budget? Are there any outstanding issues? So my strategy of work is keeping my eyes on the prize, making sure that in my office, we're crystal clear. We will vote to support the city in the work that the city does for everyone, but we will demand that our district gets its fair share and that our projects stay on time. I would invite the neighborhood council to let's have that monthly or quarterly meeting on every project as it relates to Hermon. One of the things I forgot to say is in a previous neighborhood council when I came, a gentleman met me and he started talking about how it was so difficult for his wife to walk the sidewalks. We cannot take I am a big supporter of good, strong, basic city services. I remember 10 years ago, a friend bought a house just up here and it was $712,000. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. But guess what? Today, that's considered a bargain. So not only on that project, but I would want to make sure that people in Hermon can stay housed. I would want to make sure that the infrastructure, as long as, if we're gonna keep building, and let's face it, LA has to build, but we have to ensure the safety and wellness of our residents. And I believe the best way to keep a place clean and safe is to support homeowners where possible. So you've got my commitment. It's not expecting other people to do our work. It's making sure that we are clear about what we want and we monitor that all the way through.
Heard the same stories. All I got to say is that I will hold accountable Public Works where they have failed. They have not done what they're supposed to be doing. A lot of times there are too much coffee breaks and too much home shopping. So I'm gonna have something like what Nick Pacheco used to have, is a good field worker that goes out there and looks. But I want to go one step higher than that. What are the neighborhood councils for? You know, they're there for a purpose and a reason. I want to network with them. I want them to tell me exactly what areas they want me to start working on, because I'm not going to tell you only Hermon. I'd be lying to you. The 14th district is wide, all the way to downtown, all the way to Eagle Rock. I walk them all, especially areas where they're so filth, and that's Skid Row. So I want to work with a network of each neighborhood council, because I was one of the founders. And I believe that neighborhood councils supposed to hold a responsibility and hold the accountable of the councilman, regardless if it's good news or bad news. You have to be a good steward. You're supposed to lend your ear. Your heart has to be there. I had a person, I lived just about 2 or 3 blocks from me. I knew her, senior citizen. I live on Folsom Street. She was walking across the street. She slipped and asked the husband, how is she? Well, she's in the hospital. Well, when I went out collecting signatures, I didn't see him for a long time. I said, how's your wife? She's dead. What? That fall she had on the sidewalk killed her. Did the councilman do anything about it? Did the city do? Public Works? I'm concerned about those things.
Oh, go back to Raquel, sorry. Goes back to, yes.
Well, thank you. I'm also not a career politician. I'm with Mr. Jimenez in saying that I'd be lying to say that exact sidewalk is going to get fixed. I also believe that you're right. the neighborhood councils do have a purpose, and then they're the eyes and ears for a council member, and we need to listen. And we have to make an assessment. As a social worker, we assess, and we have to know when there's a change of reins, of leadership, of administration. We have to see where in the lines were the works that were already promised. Because we can't keep promising and not doing what we're supposed to do. And if you're not committed to a job and you're just here in a passing for some other job, you know, you can't make these promises and say, I promise. And then again, we feel lied to. And we feel like the job hasn't been done. Because the fact is that there's unlimited needs. We have a lot of sidewalks that are broken. We have a lot of streets that need repair. When I also walked precincts, I got to see a lot of that firsthand, and I kept on hearing from the constituents, the lights not working, actually here on Monterey Road, the sign that's supposed to say how fast you're going, that's been broken over and over. People come out, they repair it, and they don't fix, like it doesn't work in the long term. So we need to keep having more signage. We need to definitely have better sidewalks, better streets, but I'm committed to the seat. I'm committed to the job. That's why I pledged to serve my full term, and everybody else signed except someone. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I will say, to toot our horns, the Hermon Neighborhood Council has about a 40 to 50 page Hermon bad sidewalk and street report, documented with photos, severity of the repair. Daniel Garcia was very instrumental in making that happen, but we're happy to provide that to whomever takes office right away. Thank you. I'll pass it to Jessica.
I look forward to that document.
We have one main road that runs through us, Monterey Road, and with ever increasing traffic, safety has become a big concern. 2 school children were hit in recent months from crossing Monterey, something that many students from both our neighborhood Hermon schools have to do twice a day. What creative solutions would you explore with us to keep our pedestrians safe and make Hermon a more safely walkable community?
We're going to start with Cyndi first. Thank you.
So thank you for bringing up that really important issue. It's something that I deeply care about as a parent, as a person that has noticed that we have a Vision Zero plan. The mayor of LA introduced a Vision Zero plan in 2015, and the plan was in 10 years, by 2025, we would have 0 deaths. Vision Zero means 0 deaths. And yet, when looking at the numbers recently, we actually saw an increase in deaths from pedestrians and cyclists. That is just baffling to me. 242 people were killed last year in traffic deaths. We need to be doing more, absolutely, in this city. And the way that we can do that is to design our streets for the most vulnerable. And the mayor has this grand vision, and the reason why it's not being implemented effectively is because each one of the council districts is run like a mini fiefdom. And we actually need to have more leadership, breaking down silos, working across different districts, and looking at best practices. Where have we improved pedestrian and cyclist safety in our city? And working to make sure we can implement those best case practices. Zebra crosswalks, RRBF, it's red, rectangular, flashing beacons, speed feedbacks, everything that we can do to design our city to slow down is something we should be focused on. And we all have to look at the fact that the reason why we've seen divisive conversations happen is because when we say we want to put in bike lanes, that happened on the neighborhood council in Eagle Rock. We had people who were really upset about bike lanes. They were like, we are going to take a lane of traffic. We need to actually be doing more to address the fact that we have children who are dying. So if we need to take a lane to calm traffic, that is what we need to do. But we all need to address the fact that we are super commuters, spending an hour and a half in our cars. We are tired. It's a quality of life issue. And if we focus on the outcomes, making our streets safer for children, then we all win. Thank you.
Attitudes, behaviors, and knowledge. This is how human behavior is the best supported for change. So we are a place that is changing. We know that. We are car culture. We are get there fast. Hermon has to be really clear with anybody using our streets, whatever district you live in, you're driving through here, and we need to be clear. We want to be a safe community, and you matter. So that person matters, and the people who live here matters. Helping people be aware that we impact each other is something that our society has to continue to go back to every time. So the mom who wants, when they told me there's a lake at Debs Park, I thought, lake, where? But indeed, there's a lake. But you know, one of my dreams is that, guess what? It's beautiful and we all walk there. And people would come to this area to go to Debs Park. And they would know more, but we have to let them know, this is a community, we want to be safe. So yes, awareness, communication, signage, and helping everybody breathe. Our brains need air. Yes, we can improve the quality, but the biggest thing is to recognize that whoever we elect, and I know, yes, we are hiring someone to represent us, change is not gonna come overnight. Last year's graduates, 2019, were my kindergarteners when I got onto the board. So technically, this job could be this year's kindergarteners graduating if you elect the same person 3 times. I want you to know that I am a godmother for 8 children, and it is the care for one another, in addition to speed bumps, stop signs, flashing lights, or better colors that I believe make our communities strong. And I am that partner for you.
Seems like everybody's speeding all over. Thing is that in the corner of Lorena and Whittier Boulevard, there has been many incidents there in Ball Heights. And what they put on there is cameras. And I've noticed that not only cameras are required, but also, like Eagle Rock was telling me, speed bumps. Now, it's kind of odd to make speed bumps in the main Monterey Road everybody uses to get from one point to another. But I believe that speed bumps might be the answer by certain feet away from each other, preventing to wrap up their motor to get quicker to somewhere else. They have to slow down, then again. So I think that if we did something like that with the approval of Hermon Park and Neighborhood Council, that would be a good solution right there. Also, at random, try to get the motorcycle officers to be more seen around. I noticed that also stops, because when people see a motorcycle stop, they all slow down. And so then after they pass them, they go back up again. So, you know, let's face reality. We have to probably do a little modification. It might be a little bothersome for some drivers, but who cares? A life that you save is worth more than anything else. That's important. I dealt with kids and children, and they don't think like we as adults, and sometimes we adults act like not adults. And the children look at us and say, gee, I thought you were adults. Children are more adult, more loving, more caring. They have a lot of things to offer us. We could learn a lot from each other. And a politician could also learn how to be a good steward by being a servant rather than being a leader of a seat, if you understand what I'm saying. So if I was elected and on that, believe me, I'd love to have these 2 young ladies on my board to teach them and to exchange knowledge and wisdom and make the city as it's supposed to be done.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I share the stage up here with a fellow mother, Cyndi, and we both are mothers to young children. I have a 4-year-old, and I can't fathom the idea of having my daughter struck and any one of our children struck by a car. Now, my understanding is that Monterey Road, they're speeding up and down, And I do know that there's only one signage on the other side in Rose Hills that shows us how fast you're going. So there needs to be signs on this side as well. However, as a council member, you can change policies. And the policy and the laws, and help change the laws, is that when the speed limit for Monterey Road, the study was done, it's like, how fast are the cars going? It's not because of the safety, like what the speed limit should be for safety. It's what the speed limit is based on how fast people are going. Well, that doesn't work for our children and families, for their safety. So the policy has to be changed. And absolutely, we do have to have enforcement, and we do have not only the signage, the enforcement of the speed limit, and we might have to have patrol come out here and have there and regulate the speed, so to ensure that no more kids do get hit. Not only kids, but all our pedestrians. And that's something that we all have to work collaboratively, and we all have to work together, because the safety is number one. Thank you.
This is something that's near and dear to my heart, because the number one reason for fatalities for children under the age of 18 in CD14 is due to car accidents. Whether they're walking as pedestrians, whether they're cycling as bicyclists, or whether they themselves are a passenger in a vehicle. Under the age of 18 in CD14, the number one cause is not death by handguns, but being killed by a car. And I've already had this conversation with our senior lead officer for Hermon, Austin Fernald, who I know will be retiring soon. And I've spoken with the captain of Hollenbach, who is going to replace and be the new senior lead officer, with having officers patrolling Monterey Street. But it's beyond that also too. It's working with the Department of Transportation. This is a car culture, and sadly, it's wired into our DNA. But we can change that. And that means disrupting the status quo. The oldest and first freeway in California is just right down the street. 110 freeway. How many times have we gone out the exit? Especially 43rd Street and 50th. Especially folks who are new to the area, relatives who come visit us. I can't tell you the phone calls I've gotten that will people freak out. The fatalities and deaths just on that freeway. Just down Monterey Street, going into El Sereno, where Monica lives, right? Huntington Drive, that's like a freeway. The width, and people are just speeding down so quickly. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. What do we do to make sure we protect every single citizen in CD14, but especially because of what is a quasi-pseudo freeway, which is Monterey Street, and we have Bushnell right over here, Way Elementary School. We have to make sure we protect all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next question. In recent months, land use issues have come to the forefront of our community and neighborhood council discussions. We have concerns about particular sites and areas of Hermon, including a school site at 625 Coleman that may be purchased by a high-density housing developer, and an area of our commercial corridor on Monterey Road, including where we're sitting right now, that was once C-zoned, but then was quietly down-zoned to RD 1.5 about 20 years ago without most of the owners having knowledge of it, along with other developments that haven't taken into consideration the scale and character of the community. How would you support and facilitate Hermon in updating and changing existing zoning laws so the community would have more input on future projects? We'll start with Monica.
Thank you. So input, again, I think for every issue, the best way to build that safe and clean and thriving community that we want is through communication and listening and talking. Certainly there is a crisis in our housing world. I absolutely believe that in LA we have no choice but to build. We must increase the supply of spaces to live. And that will affect both the renting crisis and, of course, just making housing more available, affordable, and having workforce housing. It's been really hard for teachers to live in the district that I represent right now. Doesn't include Hermon, but I can tell you from East LA to Koreatown, Dodger Stadium to USC, every school is 100% Title I, but the people who work at the school really struggle to live in the neighborhood. They just can't afford it. And when we turned a parking lot into a 29-unit space, by the time, it took 9 years, too long, but we did it. But by the time it was, and we wanted it for LA Unified employees, we really struggled. Only substitute teachers, that level of income, could afford it because we had given a raise, and so they didn't qualify on the federal line. But on this piece, we should be able not to guess where the next investment's coming. We should not be surprised about investments in our neighborhood. And I have heard loud and clear, the group that wants everything to stay the same is a super duper small minority. People are frustrated and want to see action, and that comes with communication back and forth, decision making, and clarity. So it's not what's the council office doing over there, it's how are we going to address the issue here.
I believe in open space. I don't believe in overcrowding our communities. I believe there's other means and other ways of redirecting where the building should be done. I believe that we should preserve our community where it's at. Unless there's a building that's decaying, that's not repairable. And if it's suitable, start building something there then. But don't do it behind the voters' back or in planning that you don't attend to those meetings. The councilman's responsibility is to consult with the community. Because I know zoning's changing and the neighbors, hey, did they change your zoning? And I go, no, why? Well, they changed their minds to downzone it and the other guy upzone it. And the guy with upzoning sold his house and they're building more than 4 units. What's happening? More congestion. No parking. As it is, we're having a parking problem. So I'm against developers coming in here and stealing from us and dictating to us and blindfolding the senior citizens of trying to sell their home that they've been living there for a long time. You raise your children take over. Yes, we need to make some kind of affordable for them as well if they want to stay in the community, but the community has to make it. We have to have a meeting like it's happening right now. Do you want it? Take a vote. There's a population. Send out letters, get replies, and move forward. Because I am working for the people, not for the developers. I am representing you. And that's what I want to do. Represent you all the way, everything, no matter what it is, every level of it. And I love to have these 2 young ladies on my staff.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jimenez. So definitely for zoning, council members can definitely work with our communities because we work for our communities and we work for our constituents. So whatever the zoning was, and if it wasn't done appropriately into changing the zone, then we need to revisit that. Now, whoever the community supports to represent you in City Hall, I want you to all look at something that's coming down the pipeline because it's coming from Sacramento, and that is called SB 50. So SB 50 will definitely give the power to developers over the city ordinance and over all the stakeholders in the community. We would absolutely lose any say of what would happen in as far as development. So I actually brought a little bit of information. So I want you to do your research about SB 50 and what's happening in Sacramento. So hold The people up in Sacramento and the people that they're aligned to in Sacramento, hold them accountable and write to them and how you are against this, because we want to keep our voice at the table. And we want to have a say of zoning, what kind of developments come in. And we also, even if it's just the aesthetics, does it fit our community? So nobody can dictate what our communities are going to do, what's going to come into our communities. The people have to have a say. You all have to have a say, and the council member needs to work for communities. So SB 50, we'll go ahead and pass those out at the table so you can educate yourself about that, of how Sacramento wants to take jurisdiction over that. Thank you.
Let me say what I've said consistently, that Hermon and Hermonites, this is a beautiful community. And we want to preserve, we want to protect the character of our community here. And when we change the zone to rezoning from the current RD 1.5 to C1, which I would be in complete agreement. In fact, I work towards that because we don't want to go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories high, 45 feet high vertically. Some communities can handle that, not in Hermon. And we can't change the character. We have to preserve and protect what we have today. Now, we do have a housing crisis, and Monica articulated it very nicely. But some communities can handle it better. For example, in downtown Los Angeles, you can upzone. And the community and the neighborhood council districts over there want to grow up vertically. And they want affordability. They want housing for low-income families. We want housing for our homeless, unhoused community. And this is what we need. But for Hermon specifically, you cannot upzone. You cannot go beyond 3, 4, 5, 6 stories. 45 minimum feet above vertically. We have to preserve and protect what we have here in Hermon. And that does mean specifically to rezone. You have to rezone from RD 1.5 to C1 to legally protect the community as we have it today. And unfortunately, as you say, 2 decades ago, the council member at the time, did change it. I don't know what the reasoning was back then, but we have to rechange it back so we can protect. And we have a few properties here, the LA County Mental Health Center here. We have our church and a few properties right here where we're engaged right now with the property owners right now specifically to see if they will comply. If we get their agreement, we can make that change to the new zone so we can protect and preserve the character of our community here in Hermon.
So it appears that that site's been sold to a developer, and an architect has come in and met with the community and told them that there are 40 apartments or homes that can be built by right in that area. And then the rest of that site is actually zoned for residential, which means that only a handful of homes can be built in that area, which is where the developer is seeking a variance for that. Now, in this case, it sounds like the developer offered the neighborhood an acre of land for public use, and that could be a very interesting deal, right? But it requires a partnership with the council office to make sure that that land can be used as a park or whatever the residents want, and that the density that they're trading for is something that people really want. Now, a council member's job is to educate residents and neighbors to speak to people in the power that they can understand, that we can equip people and residents to speak and ask for specific things. That is how we get things done. While I served on the neighborhood council, the LA Archdiocese was trying to buy a mansion and develop it and turn it into pretty much a hotel. And because we asked for specific things, we knew the language to speak to, we were able to make sure that that didn't happen. Now, we also have to talk about backroom deals. If the council member at the time was making a backroom deal with the developer, we would never have known, and that would have just gotten pushed through in planning and land use, which is why I have pledged 100% clean money campaign. No developer money, because that is what is poisoning our neighborhoods, is when we ask for the things that we want and we don't get them and we don't understand why. So that is what we can do.
Homelessness is a huge concern in Los Angeles and in Hermon specifically. We have encampments primarily along Arroyo Seco and up into Debs Park, the jurisdiction of which falls on a combination of the city, the county, and the state authorities. How will you work to end homelessness, citywide and more specifically in Hermon? And how will you work with our neighborhood council and our community to support our stakeholders that have been affected by homelessness?
As I said, this morning I was with Senior Lead Officer Dion in Skid Row, and we talked about all of the Skid Row people and other areas. What's happening, people don't really walk, or most of the candidates don't even take a chance to walk alone in Skid Row. And he says, why do you take these chances? Because I want to know the key secret. Because 11 years ago when I ran, I dealt with OG, they called him OG in Puerto Rico, and they were living in boxes. And they took my remedy, and guess what? They're not living in boxes anymore. They're living inside units with tickets and all that. The homeless people that are out there with tents, they're not from here. They're from other states, other counties, dumping them to LA. San Francisco's doing the same thing. And I said, well, what are we going to do? Stop feeding them. Stop the churches going over there and feeding them. Because then it's creating a resource for them to be lazy. And there's mental problems. So we have to deal with that. So I told him, I get elected, we're going to work to get that stopped and have other different resources and get those people not to be living on the streets, because even police officers getting sick. It's happening here. What's happening is if resources stop there and the resources are being given here, they're going to come here more.
Right.
They're better than a newspaper, better than social media. So be aware that that has never been resolved, because they don't want to work with the police department, the council office. He already told me that. So I'm pledged to do everything to make everything right for the community and the safety and health ways.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in opening remarks in my introduction, I do work directly with homeless students in South LA, and it's not a one-shoe-fits-all. So there's different reasons why people are homeless. So we would make an assessment, we would put names to faces, and we cannot keep working in silos. We have to work together, federal, state, county, city, so we can all work together. Once we put faces to names, we can say, well, where do you come from? And we can say, if they're coming out of state, we can send them back to their state. We need federal help with that. If there's a housing affordability issue, we can categorize, and as a council member who's committed to serve the full term, we can definitely work a comprehensive plan, because it's going to take time. So we need to go ahead and identify what is the root cause. Is it a housing affordable issue? That would be a level 1. Level 2, is it a mental health issue? As a therapist, I'm a therapist. There's a lot of people out in the street who, yes, they have mental health needs. They need medication, and we'll address that. If it's a substance abuse problem, we'll address that. We'll make it in stages, and we're here to work full term, long term, so we can address the issue. Now, we're compassionate. I'm a social worker, but there are we have to have law and order and some disincentives. So we cannot have an unlimited amount of stuff a homeless person can have, where they encroach a whole sidewalk and constituents can't walk, and it's a public health issue, and our officers can't keep getting sick. So I am committed to address the issue, not only having an assessment, having interventions that work for individual people, but having measurable outcomes and transparency to fix this issue.
This is a critical issue. issue. It's a human catastrophe. It is a dystopian nightmare unlike anything we've ever seen before. It is both shocking as well as shameful. But let me say this clearly, without any equivocation, you don't need more studies and assessments and reports. You have enough studies and reports and assessments to fill the library in downtown Los Angeles. What is needed now is action, real action. We have 36,000 individuals sleeping in our streets every single day, men and women and increasingly children. Makeshift tents as well as cardboard boxes. The epicenter is in downtown LA, but you're right, we have it in Arroyo Seco too. We see it every day when we're on the 110 freeway. We need housing. We need permanent housing solutions because we can do the sweeps, but where are you going to send them to? We play musical chairs continuously and we blow through money. And the issue with regard to all their own personal belongings, that's the Mitchell decision. That's by law. You cannot have the LAPD confiscate that or social workers confiscate that. That is the Mitchell decision. And you can't get around it until we start building prefabricated modular housing. Not housing at $600,000 a pop. That's extraordinarily outrageous. That we have middle income families, we have teachers, we have nurses who cannot afford $600,000 per unit through HHH dollars. But that's what we're spending today. We should only spend a maximum $100,000 to $150,000 per unit on prefabricated modular housing. We have General Hospital at County USC Medical Center that is completely empty. We have 1,000 beds, and we have to utilize that. We have so many city assets, properties that so many city agencies own. LADWP, transmission lines. We should be utilizing all of those assets right now. And last thing I would say is in City Hall, you have to cut all the red tape. All the delays in City Hall cost more money, and that is taxpayer dollars that are being wasted. We have $2 billion that's coming down the pipeline right now, no place like home. I wrote that measure by spending a considerable amount of time in Skid Row today, yesterday, in the last few years, and we can have a huge impact. And if we can do it in CD14, we can demonstrate to the rest of the city and the state that we can solve this homeless crisis, and we are going to do it if I am your city council member for CD14.
We need a housing first approach. The city has already gone all in on housing, and let me explain why. The city of Milwaukee actually did a housing first approach, which means that you get people on a path immediately and directly to permanent supportive housing. Once you put a roof over people's heads, then you can stabilize them and provide wraparound services. That proved effective. In over 3 years, they saw a 40% decrease in people experiencing homelessness. That is what we need to do. While we wait for more housing to be built, it's taking a while. We need to do everything we can to get our homeless neighbors off the street, to be able to have low barriers to entry, lower barriers, including making sure that people don't have to have a curfew, don't have sobriety, because if you make those restrictions, then people will stay on the streets. Right now, across the city, there are sweeps happening. Now you have to ask yourself, why is that happening within the week that we are about to have a homeless count by LAHSA? We need services, not sweeps. We need census. We need to get an accurate estimate of the problem so that we can effectively address it. And that is what we need to do. So we need to be calling all of our council members to make sure that they are on board with that. Oftentimes when these sweeps happen, people have valuable documents, they have IDs, and they have medical history. And that basically gets ruined when these sweeps happen, and that puts them more into a spiral. In my experience at Miri's List of resettling new arrival refugee families, we identified 3 pillars: survive, hive, and thrive. And in that survive, we got people out of motels and temporary shelters into housing. And then we provided wraparound services, and only then could we add mental health services and education and job training. That is what we need. We need to make sure to take care of our homeless neighbors. What is the worst that can happen? By feeding people, by making them stronger, by investing in them, we pull them out of the cycle of poverty. It is costing us more money to treat homelessness than it is to actually solve it. We are spending $20,000 per person in emergency medical services. Yet, it's only $7,800 to actually house somebody. We have a moral obligation to actually help our homeless neighbors, and we actually have a fiscal obligation as well.
Thank you. So this is multiple systems of support, right? And all hands on deck. There is no easy answer here, but I am committed to create enough shelter for everyone in CD14 in my first term. I want to be the city where there is shelter for everyone, and I do believe when people have access to services and support, they want to be inside. There might be a small minority who has had such a trauma and such a horrible experience that right now they'll tell you, I prefer not to, but that's a different solution. When I worked for LA County, and I met young people in the camps, right? I met kids that scared me and kids that made me mad. Kids that scared me were the ones who had already given up, and they just flat out said, whatever you got, I don't want it. And you know, because I believe human beings want to be self-sufficient, because I believe that every person has dignity and respect, I think we have to do everything possible to avoid anarchy and lawlessness and the humanitarian crisis that we are seeing downtown. It is, I'm gonna borrow Senator's word, it is shameful. We are better than that. But this didn't happen overnight. This is an example of what happens when people kick it down the road and ignore a problem. So we've had a California economic collapse. We had people lose their homes. We had a bunch, 250,000 manufacturing jobs go out of this area, replaced by high-tech jobs, not the same kind of work. There is trauma and pain in the street. I believe we have the talent and the knowledge of how to address it. If the Olympics were coming next year, we would absolutely be moving faster. Like using the homes that the Caltrans owns, like using empty buildings, like using public property, and that's the city, the county, the community college district, LA Unified. I mean, all hands on deck means we all lift expectations and we all share responsibility.
Thank you. Yeah, homelessness is obviously a very serious issue in the city of Los Angeles, and we appreciate your thought and passion in answering that question. Now to something a little lighter. Hermon's holiday event and decorations. It's a great transition, right?
But not less intense.
Well, we did have a stolen ornament. I will share, we're doing pretty well on time, so I'm gonna share you a little story about our decorations. So this is our first year, last year we got a bow on the Hermon sign, and then this year we added ornaments. The council office paid for the Hermon tree, which is so beautifully decorated, and they will be removed at some point soon, but it's really beautiful and all the neighborhoods love it. But we had 5 large lighted decorations under the tree. And so, and I should also mention we had 2 lovely 6-foot reindeer who were unfortunately stolen very early in the process and have been not located. But our big decoration stayed. So we had the 4 presents and 2 large ornaments. I was coming home on Friday night. We were supposed to get our ornaments. They were finally taken today. But I noticed that the big blue ornament, these are like my babies, one was gone. And I come back to see a next door post that it was witnessed that a person took this giant ornament, it's about this big and this wide, on foot towards this way, and then went towards Huntington Drive in El Sereno. So I alerted all of my board members. We started alerting everybody on next door. I'm like, this thing's a goner. It's like the reindeer. Didn't expect it to happen. Somebody asked for a picture, so I said, it's a big ornament, but okay, I'll put a picture up. And wouldn't you know, that was Friday night it was taken. On Sunday, someone took a picture of it on the median on Huntington in El Sereno. And someone decided that, I guess, and put it under the tree. So it was at another holiday decoration. So I've told LA 32, maybe your community wants more holiday decorations. So anyway, people really liked them. Obviously, this guy liked it a lot, wanted it. But I'm just amazed that he took this giant ornament on foot 2 miles to Huntington. Okay, now we're back on time. So our largest holiday event that the Hermon Neighborhood Council sponsors is the holiday tree lighting. 2 of the highlights of that event is, of course, the decorations on the Hermon tree, and also the gift giveaway to the children, especially the elementary school children in our community. Those 2 elements have been entirely sponsored by CD14 and the council office. So our question is, would you continue these? It's a 1-minute question. 1 minute answer.
Why not? It's a cheerful moment. Yes, I continue helping. Any community that wants that Christmas cheer and joyful, yeah, I'll be more than happy. There'll be a budget put aside. The thing is that, talking about budget, we need to learn all these little different events from the different community. What's the budget and what is the budget that the city council has? I know that's the first thing I'm going to be looking at is the budget, how much money is coming in. Talking about, like you said, homeless and all that. Well, we also have Christmas, but in a different fashion, different way. But I think that whatever the neighborhood council comes out to for ornaments and things like that, I think we don't have to buy them. I think the councilman has enough power to go to a manufacturer and get them donated and get it as a tax write-off. Because I've done a lot of things. Since 2005 to present, we have done a lot of activities, and we're not funded, the organization. It's all given by donations, by manufacturers. I stand there and I write letters and call them up and follow them up, and we get it donated. In fact, this coming Saturday, we're going to be on 53rd and York, giving out gifts to people. Huh?
Arlene is standing up.
Yeah. So
Our stop sign's now standing.
So if this was, just to clarify, I'm not Scrooge and I love joy and community, but I would want to know, is this the biggest investment that you want committed from the council office? Because if it is, then by all means we'll work together. So I'm curious, when we think about we can't have $600,000 facilities, I wonder how much are we spending on community events that are important, but is that in place of a community solution to the folks on the Arroyo Seco neighborhood? Intense and are homeless. And is there a Thanksgiving meal that we would all share together? Or is there something the children could make that for the other community? I would just explore, how are we going to celebrate? But if this was the priority in Hermon, then by all means. I would also want to challenge us. What are we going to invest to create different outcomes for the neighborhood? And I don't have a solution for you today, but I would make the question a conversation piece before we do that celebration.
Thank you. Sorry, we only gave 1 minute for this question because we didn't think it was a big discussion point.
I will try to keep some time and make some time back. Yes, I would love to continue the holiday cheer. I have been at a lot of these celebrations in Eagle Rock. My kids loved it, but also there are ways that we can look to see how can we improve things. I would ask the children, are there ways that we can provide toys that aren't going to break the minute you get them home? I would make sure that we support our local businesses and actually go and partner with them within the district to say, how can we support your business for this big holiday event that we're having across the district? And also, every year, there's an opportunity to improve. So I know in Hermon, one of the issues is that there isn't a great place to gather. In Eagle Rock, we're lucky to have a city hall, and we all gather there, and we can cross up the street, but you guys don't have that. And so making sure to work with the neighborhood councils and make sure that there's a better way to improve it every single year.
It's a beautiful Christmas tree, and the ornaments are spectacular. I love it, and I think we should do a Christmas tree just like Hermon in all of our communities. So the answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes. But also too, what else can we do in Hermon? On Monterey Street, can we shut down Monterey Street for a weekend? Could we have community festivals where we bring all of our community, our friends and neighbors here at Monterey Street? Can we have festivals down the street on Marisol, down in Hermon Park? We should think of things that we can do. We need a coffee shop here. I know ours closed down just recently here. And when we go from our, D 1.5 to C1, we're gonna see if we can get a bistro so folks won't have to go to South Pasadena. And folks won't have to go elsewhere. They can go and stay here in our community. So how can we, bring some amenities here that the community in Hermon wants here that will make it much better? But the answer is unequivocally, absolutely yes.
So absolutely, let's keep our community traditions, and that is the tradition of Hermon and that beautiful tree that you have and lit up and everything. But also, let's talk about these stolen ornaments and how we can get more police to keep not only Hermon safe, but all of our communities safe, because property crime is up. When I speak to police officers, they did let me know the stats. So how can we get more patrolling in our streets so we don't have more property crime and stolen ornaments? I actually did many toy drives in Boyle Heights, the Miracle on First Street. So these events that make up our community identities throughout the district, we absolutely have to keep our traditions alive. And as far as budget, how do we all come together and pitch in? How do the small businesses come in and pitch in? Our neighbors come and pitch in, so we can be, have a good budget to go ahead and keep our community traditions alive. But of course, as your councilwoman, I would definitely want to keep our traditions alive, not only here at Hermon, but throughout the district. Thank you.
Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to answer this
Wait,
question.
you're not on, hold on.
Is this thing on?
Thank you. Each question will be given to the candidate with 2 minutes to respond. In 2024, what will you have listed as your accomplishments in Hermon during your first 4 years to make us want to vote to re-elect you?
We will have Marisol infrastructure corrected. We will have Monterey Street that will be safe. We'll have no fatalities. We will actually rezone from RD 1.5 to C1. We will protect the integrity of our community. We will not have upzoning at all whatsoever. We're not going to change the character of our community. We do have a housing crisis, no question about it, but we're not going to upzone right here in Hermon specifically. We're going to take out the plastic ballards that we have here, and we're going to put permanent safeguards for our bicyclists, so our young folks and older folks can bicycle safely without the fear of being killed by a vehicle. We're going to make this a safe community. We're going to have more patrols as we speak with our new senior lead officer and with the captain at Hollenbeck Station. We're going to have more patrols here in this area, and you're going to have excellent staff. Let me be very clear. You're going to have excellent staff that's going to be responding to all the neighborhood city council members. I have always met with all of my constituents, no matter if they were homeless, no matter if they were low income, middle class, high, it doesn't make a difference to me. Everyone deserves excellent constituent services, and Hermon will be represented fiercely in City Hall. You will have a voice, and you will have someone who will represent your values and your goals and dreams and aspirations as Hermonites. Thank you.
First of all, in 2024, I'll still be your council member because I've pledged to serve my full term. What you can see from me is that I will be responsive, accountable, and honest, and I will have partnered with you to make sure that Hermon is safer, that it is safer for children, that we have a crossing guard at every school. Myself and Raquel share the glorious endorsement of the United Teachers Union of Los Angeles because we are committed to to fully funding our public education and making our streets our schools, community schools. So that is what you'll see. Also, you'll see that there is a more livable city that is more equitable, making sure that we have renter protections in the city, making sure that we have opportunities to keep people in their homes, and making sure that we have public transportation, that we have options in the city, relief of congestion in the city, that we have cleaner air, and that we have more transparent government at the city council, that you have a restored faith and trust in your elected officials with me at City Hall. Thank you.
So 2024, I too have committed to serve out my term, and you will absolutely see greater than 2 women in our city offices. You will absolutely see fewer people on the streets, because LA will have a sheltered space for every person who needed it in CD14. You will see jobs for our young people who have worked hard to get to graduation. And you will see, you know, my mom is 78 and my niece is 8, and I want them to have that council office that is responsive to their needs. So we gotta do something better about our parks so that they're more active, and we have to have our sidewalks more walkable. And friends, I hope by 2024, we will have more, we have a lot of strengths, but we will have more clarity and intentionality around the purpose of our city government and the kind of community that we are building. Thank you for your time today.
Like I said before, I'm gonna follow up what they have failed to fulfill, and I'm gonna also be serving you. I'm gonna be the best steward there is. I don't have a magic wand, but I do know that I will have to depend on neighborhood council. My seat will not be by appointment, closed doors and stuff like that. It's gonna be by community. To have you as a voice, because you're my boss. No, not City Hall. I'm gonna be moving out of ways, like I said. Now, if I was a state senator or a state assemblyman, I could make all kinds of laws that would be affecting the city council. But as a city council, I could only handle civic laws. Laws are made in the state by state assembly people and state senators. I could only do around is manage the money, make sure it goes in the right place, investigate, and expose what's going on in closed doors. Because I'm not afraid to challenge. I'm not, easy to actually buy, because I'm not for sale. So the thing is that, again, I heard a lot of talk here, a lot of things, but I've heard it 11 years ago and also 25 years ago. So I want to make that difference by being your councilman. And like, again, I believe that I already found 2 young ladies.
I don't need you to hire me.
That
I'll
will
have
be,
my own job.
I want you to work for me.
I'll have my
I believe that they have
Some men do when they don't know their
they have something to contribute. I do know that. I'm listening here. I'm not young, but I raised my kids and I saw a lot of people. So vote for me, give me that opportunity. In the first 4 years, you're gonna see your sidewalks in the streets and a lot of things being taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Well, in 2024, you will still see me as your councilwoman. I am the candidate who initiated the pledge to serve your term. So you will still see me here working for you, working with our neighborhood councils, working with our constituents, addressing the issues, getting our sidewalks fixed, having clean streets, having more patrol, helping our small businesses thrive. My family has a business that has been in business for 50 years. I definitely am a big advocate for our small businesses, because not only do they employ our local residents, they keep our local dollars. There are services, whether it be a restaurant, a mechanic shop, a dry cleaners. We need to help our small businesses to help our communities thrive. Here in Hermon, I definitely do want to revisit the zoning. Let's change it back to what it was and what the community wants. We work as council members, we work for the community. We will have office hours and we'll keep working together. And if I become your councilwoman, not only will I serve this term, but however many terms you all want me elected, because I'm here to stay. My family's been here for 50 years, not moving anywhere. I'm raising my daughter in the same neighborhood blocks that raised me, not going anywhere. And this will be not the last time you're here for me. I'm not gonna run for higher office. I'm gonna continue working. And as an educator, it is very important that we invest in our education and the education of our youth to have our communities thrive. Thank you very much for your time.
It is now in order for our final remarks. We will start with Raquel Zamora.
90 seconds each.
Oh, wow. Well, so final remarks. I am committed to serve my term. I am a mother, an educator, a small business owner, and a former appointed commissioner by Mayor Eric Garcia, serving children and families. And I'm committed to the seat. I'm committed to definitely keep working with our neighborhood councils, just reiterating that, and making sure that services go throughout the district and that we have better housing, more housing. We address our homelessness crisis, and we have supportive housing throughout our district where we can go ahead and help our homeless neighbors. And like I said, like there are incentives, there's also disincentives. We have to have law and order, and we have to have more patrol, safer streets, cleaner streets. Thank you very much.
Kevin De Leon.
Thank you so very much. In me, you'll have a dedicated public servant, someone who's honest, someone who's trustworthy, someone who's fearless, someone who has an experienced track record, someone who will fight for you every single day in the trenches. Look at my record, look at my experience. You'll see what I can do to be your voice in City Hall. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Sierra Club. They know my environmental track record. I'm proud to have endorsement of the Los Angeles League of Conservation Voters because of my environmental track record. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Democratic Party in Los Angeles. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the LA Heart of Los Angeles, all women Democratic club, who endorsed my candidacy after interviewing all of the candidates on my stance in defending women's rights. In me, you'll have someone who will work for you every single day tirelessly, with an excellent staff who will be available to each and every one of you. This is a time for experienced leadership, not for individuals who aspire to be a politician, to be there for 12 years, a career politician, quote unquote. This is time for someone who's experienced. When you are deathly sick, you do not want someone who aspires to be a doctor, an open heart surgeon. You want the one who's experienced, who knows how to get the job done. And this is me. I thank you very much for this opportunity to be with each and every one of you, and I respectfully ask to be your next voice in City Hall. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a cada uno de ustedes. Gracias.
Cyndi, Otteson.
Once again, thank you to the Hermon Neighborhood Council for hosting, and thank you for everybody who came out today. Whoever wins this election is hired to have a really big job representing 250,000 people. In my career, I have hired dozens and dozens of people, and what I look for is motivation, qualifications, and character. My motivation is that I was born here. I'm raising my children here. I have a personal stake in the success of this council district. My qualifications: I'm a working mother, public servant, and a nonprofit leader with a proven track record of success. But let's talk about my character. The theme of my candidacy is families and neighborhoods first, which means every single decision that I make at City Hall will be to ask myself, does this benefit the families and neighborhoods in this district? What I won't be asking myself is, how does this affect my political career? Because I am not using this office as a stepping stone for a higher office. I will fully pledge to serve my full term. And let's talk about honesty. Let's talk about honesty. I will be honest. I have been honest. And I will be accountable and responsible to you. That frees me up to be your council member. Council member is a full-time job. And you deserve somebody that will be there full time. And that is what I will do. You can hire me by voting for me on March 3rd. Please go to my website at Cyndi2020.com to learn more about my platform. Cyndi, like Cyndi Lauper, 2020.com. Thank you.
So I've adopted the Nelson Mandela slogan of I never lose, I win or I learn. I have experienced such highs on this city council campaign. I want to just encourage you to continue to demand, continue to invite people to come close, because there is a choice on March 3rd, and there are a lot, we live in the valley of Democrats, Labor Democrats. There are some differences amongst us, but policy-wise, I'm gonna say we're all in the realm of like-mindedness. The differences are approach to this particular job, to the truthfulness about wanting to have this job and not another one, the truthfulness about planning to serve people in these neighborhoods and not others. And friends, this is your decision to make. So I offer my candidacy as someone who has experienced social change from system change and individual change. I offer you my candidacy as someone who has deep roots in this neighborhood and values that are passed on through generations. And I know who I am, what I want, and what is the world I'm trying to build with others. So I am grateful for this conversation tonight. I think every one of these folks have a lot to offer, and I think it's up to you to participate. So vote, invite your neighbors to vote. Let's make sure CD14 turns out a historic number of people expressing themselves. Because whatever age you are, whatever opinions you have about sexist behavior, how easy it is for men to discount the work of women who are leading our families and communities on the regular, I think it's just important that this time we have a choice. Gracias. Woo!
John Jimenez.
I thank you for the invitation. It's in your hands. And if you want to know really the truth more about me, pick one of these up if there's any left. It gives you a complete bio about me. 46 years of experience serving the people. Even volunteer, out of the 46 years of serving, 10 years was donated time, volunteers. I'm not here to be a politician or a polished one. I'm here to serve and to be a good steward and be fair, transparent, and turn City Hall upside down with the facts, not lip service, not false promises. I'm tired of hearing all these things happening in the 14th district. That's why I'm running again, and I'm not gonna go nowhere. I win, you'll see, and you'll re-elect me because you saw the results. And you'll see that I'm not playing the game. I'm also a homeowner. I also pay taxes. I also raise my son and my daughters. They're all well set. And the thing is up to you. You're the voters. You're the bosses, not us. We have to work for you. We have to be your stewards. And God bless you all.
Yes, we have. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our candidates for coming to our special community of Hermon and letting our citizens listen to you. And thanks for listening about the tale of the stolen holiday ornament. It has been returned. It was retrieved and it's now back. Thank you. It's in storage until next year. Anyway, we hope to see you at our next Hermon Neighborhood Council meeting, Thursday, February 6th at 7 p.m., right across the street here on Wheeling Way. And remember to vote for Council District 14 on March 3rd.
I just got one question.